Yeah, so let's talk about resumes. And if any of you would, I'll offer this up since there's not too many people here, but I'm more than happy to review your resumes and, give you some advice. But, the truth is that everyone will have a different opinion on what a resume should look like. But, the truth is also is that resumes are trendy and, you know, over the years, they change and they will change again on what people generally look for. But yeah, so resumes are just a blunt tool to hit somebody over the head with and get their attention. That's all that they are. A lot of people take their resumes personally because it's your work. But as much as you can depersonalize your resume and just realize that it's a tool to get a job, the better off you'll be, I think. Typically when somebody is looking at your resume, you have 1 minute at best. And I can go through a resume in maybe 10 seconds and decide whether I want to talk to somebody or not. So you don't have a ton of time. No one's going to read every word on your resume. That being said, we tend to also see mistakes really quickly though too. So, don't you have to be careful with a resume. You have to, spell check it. You have to make sure that it looks okay and all of those kinds of things. But the point is that you only have about 1 minute at best to get someone's attention. They'll decide whether to put your resume in the shortlist pile or shred it right then and there. Maybe 15 years ago, resumes, it was okay if they were functional. And what that means is that you have all of this about you stuff at the top of your resume. And then at the very bottom, you have like a list of your jobs that you've done or what you've done, including school and those kinds of things. That's not how resumes should look today at all. Like that will quickly get you declined. So resumes should be chronological. And what that means is that generally, you put your name at the top, the small about you section, maybe your technical stack, and then what you've done. And that, I'll talk about this more, but that can talk about the work that you've done at Tech Academy, right? So if you put things into production, if you have an internship, those kinds of things, that should go there. If you don't know something, or if you haven't done something and you're just familiar with it, maybe a coworker did it, or a fellow student did something, or you were on like a project that was peripheral that they were working with something, do not put that on your resume. Anything on your resume is fair game, and the interviewer can ask about it. And if all of a sudden you start stuttering because you don't know about that thing, that's a problem, right? So don't put it on your resume if you don't have it. Technical summary should be a glossary, and what I mean by that is that if so you have a technical summary towards the top of your resume. If those things aren't also in your chronological experience down below, or maybe your internships or projects that you did with Academy, for example, they don't exist. So if it's up above but it's not down below, that's also a problem, right? So people are looking at your technical summary really, really quick, and if they want something that you have in there but they can't tell where you've done it, they're not going to take the time to ask you. Yeah, so I'll move on to the next slide. I call these MSAs, but made, saved, achieved statements are really important, right? So what I mean by that is that this can be something that you made, saved, or achieved for a company, and numbers always look good. So if it's, I developed this software which saved the company X amount of dollars, or I developed this software that made the company X amount of dollars, or I reduced runtime by this amount, whatever the case may be, right? You should have one of those statements for each position that you've had, at least. So our eyes tend to go to numbers immediately on a resume, and you will immediately get someone's attention when they see it. What that can look like for you is it can be some kind of an achievement that you've had, right? Like, I put this into production in X amount of time and it achieved this, right? So I'm happy to discuss that with you individually as well. One mistake that people make is that they write these big paragraphs for the jobs on their resume, and no one's going to read them. It's just too much. We'll maybe gloss over it, but we won't read it. So quick bullet points, one-liners, but you also can't make it too brief, right? So it needs to actually discuss something. One thing I didn't mention on here, but never take a job description from a job that you've had and paste that on your resume. A lot of people do that pretty often too. Please don't do that. Make your resume original, talk about the things that you did there, but don't take your old job description and just paste it on there and call it a resume. A lot of people do that. Please don't do that. This third line here, reduce the noise. No one cares if you like pizza and play D&D. And by the way, I like both. But you don't need to put your hobbies on your resume. You don't need to talk about things that aren't part of your professional life on your resume. It's just noise, right? And going back to my first point here, resumes are just a blunt tool to get someone's attention. That won't really get their attention, right? It's just a distraction. You can talk about that at the end of your interview when you're having the fun part of your conversation with the interviewer. I would assume that we have some designers here. I'm assuming, or people that are creative, right, and do some front end work or whatever. This is for you. If your portfolio isn't up to date, if it isn't looking amazing and ready for the world to see it, please do not put a link to it on your resume. Just don't do it. You need to take the time to get that right, and please do so as soon as possible, but don't put it on your resume if it's not ready to go. Do not pay somebody to write a resume for you. It is a ripoff, and there are many services out there that offer it up. Don't do it, please. There's some of the worst services out there. And as students, I would assume that that you're not yet, at least at the height of your money-making part of your career. You don't need to waste money on it. If your LinkedIn looks different than your resume, if there are jobs on your LinkedIn that aren't on your resume, or other things, fix that. Make sure that that for the most part, that your LinkedIn profile and your resume are identical. Try to make it so. Speaking of LinkedIn, please don't use the LinkedIn feature to make your resume. That's the only people that actually use those are recruiters like us, and all that we're doing is, if we want to bring somebody's profile into our system, we go and save that PDF and download it into our system and then contact them. But those resumes don't look good. They're just a tool that we use, but don't use that for your resume. Unless you're a designer, so going back to that the portfolio thing, unless you're a designer, your resume does not need to look pretty. No one cares about the color of your resume. You don't want your resume to be 10 pages long. You don't want your resume to be super small font or super large font, just, something like Calibri 11 or 12 maybe, and, 1-inch margins, and, quick, concise bullet points. That's what you need to worry about more than anything. No one cares about how pretty it looks. I promise. If you have any questions there, please type them in and I'll answer them afterwards. Interviews. So next one here. So every interaction that you have with an employer is an interview. So that's from the time that they might call you for an interview to get an interview scheduled. That might be them reaching out to you to schedule an interview over email. That might be, whatever the case may be. Every interaction that you have with them is an interview. It's the person at the front desk. If it happens to be an in-person interview when you go into the company, right? That's an interview. It's the kind of preamble before an interview, also an interview. It's all interviewing. So just keep that in mind. Don't put your guard up so much that you become impersonal. But every conversation with it, that you have with them before you start is an interview. For interviews, both virtual and in person, be early, but not too early. I generally tell people 5 minutes. So 5 minutes is a good time to be in front of your camera. 5 minutes is a good time to be sitting in the lobby if it's an in-person interview. 15 minutes is too much. You look like you mistimed the interview, or that, they might think it's weird. For virtual interviews, and I know that this sounds obvious, but trust me, I've seen it happen way too many times. Turn your camera on. Turn the lights on. Use a virtual background or blur your background like I have here. At least ensure that you're in a semi-professional looking space if you don't. I've seen people not blur their background, not use virtual backgrounds, but their background is like a white wall. That's great. Or their background might have like a degree or diploma in the background, or some, inoffensive pictures. At the same time, I've also seen people not blur their background and be in a dirty room with laundry in the background and, food on the table. Please don't do that. Engineers need to hear this a lot, and so this goes for most of you. You don't work in a mall, so hoodies are a no-go. Remove the beanie. Don't wear a hat. Realize that you're there for an interview. And I might sound boomerish when I say that, but it's true. And I promise you that you will only hurt yourself if you decide to do that. You don't need to wear a suit and tie, right? That's definitely 30 years ago. But at the same time, don't be too casual. I would not wear a t-shirt. I would, wear a sweater or a button down, whatever the case may be, right? So just business casual is the key. This is the biggest reason that people don't get jobs, this bullet point from an interview. So they're not prepared to talk about what they've done with examples. So that can look like a lot of things, but for example, if a interviewer asks you about your React experience and you just say, yes, I've done it, that's not enough. You won't get the job. If somebody asks you about, your React experience, I would go into detail about what you've done, what you've put into production, offer to share some examples. Here's my GitHub where, I have examples of this, whatever the case may be, right? Don't just say yes and don't just say no. So the no might look like, have you worked with Angular? No, I haven't, but I've worked with React, and they're pretty similar MVC-based JavaScript languages, and I'd love to pick it up. And as a matter of fact, before my next interview, I'll write some Angular for you. That's a much better answer than just saying no. Um, you know, writing software is a lot like, being a professional puzzle solver, and you have to be in the right mindset for it. Realize that, or just plan on the interview getting technical. So plan on it. Be in that mindset. Know that you're going to have to do that. One thing I didn't mention here, and I should have, please, 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 and we've seen it multiple times now. Do not use Chat GPT in the interview. Just don't do it. Don't do it also for, like tests that they send you. If you, I mean, we've seen people do it and we've seen their answers be identical to the next person. And it was really easy to find that answer on Chat GPT, right? Don't go there. Please. It'll be really obvious. People will know. Look and act engaged in the conversation. The camera are your and their eyes, but don't do this the entire time either. It's creepy. And, if you were to do that for minutes on end, it would look weird, right? So, try to look in their eyes and away, just like you're speaking with someone. Just pretend like the camera is their face and that's how they're seeing you as well. So, constant eye contact looks weird. Not looking at it at all looks weird. So engage with the camera, but not all the time. Kind of going back to the previous page, concise but thorough answers, right? They're the key. So if they ask you again, tell me about your React experience, I wouldn't go on and on and on about it for 5 minutes. Keep it concise, but give a thorough answer. So the example that I gave would be a good answer, right? That's less than 30 seconds. It answers their question thoroughly, and then you can move on. Another reason why people don't get jobs fairly often from interviews is that they don't answer the questions that they're being asked, and they're not being very direct about it. Give a real direct answer. So if you don't have something, it's okay to say, I don't have that. Say, I don't have that, but I've done this. That's a direct answer. But if you say, well, yeah, I kind of did that, and I did this and this, but you didn't really answer the question, you're not going to get the job either. This goes without saying, but as in resumes with are true in interviews as well, don't lie. No BS. Just be honest. This is a good way to wrap up an interview, but thank them for their time, ask if they have any questions or concerns, and then ask about next steps. Thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed it. Do you have any questions or concerns for me? And if they say no, then great. What are the next steps? I look forward to it. That kind of thing. And it also may go without saying, but if you want it, let them know. Offer negotiations. So hopefully this pertains to all of you here real soon. But yeah, here's a few tips. Not all offers are negotiable. Just you can ask them if it's negotiable, and if they say no, it's probably not. I've been doing this for way too long, placed about 1,000 people over the years, more offers than that for people, and I've seen people lose offers several times. So you can lose an offer by being too greedy. Just, don't overplay your hand. Don't get too greedy in the negotiation process. I wrote this here, but offers are rarely not negotiable above 5 or 10%. So they're holding something back most of the time, but not all the time. right? Especially like big companies, or, companies with a lot of red tape like government. They might have salary bands and they're just offering you the salary band and it's not negotiable. But if it's a mid-sized company or a big company without a ton of process like a Nike, they're holding something back, just, but they're not going to give you a 25% increase over what they offered you. This next one here, you have to live up to what you get. So I'll give you an example of this. So when I was first starting out, way too long ago, I got this person an offer at Boeing, and they were a QA engineer, and they had never done automation before. But they went from they were making $20 an hour in their job before, and I got them a $60 an hour job in Seattle with Boeing back in 2008. So that was a lot of money. And, it turns out they couldn't pick it up fast enough and they got fired. So, if you ask for too much, you're going to be expected to deliver that amount, if that makes sense. So just realize that. When you receive an offer and you're not immediately excited about it, just let them know that you're going to speak with your family and get back to them. So do that, though. Take the time to talk with family, with trusted friends, whatever the case may be. You can call me and I'll give you my thoughts if you would like. But when you receive an offer and you're not super excited about it, just don't lose it by not sounding happy about it. Right? They can rescind the offer at any time before you start, with no legal consequences whatsoever. Right? It's not a contract. It's, Oregon's a right to work state, so is Washington. Offers typically expire 3 to 5 days from offer. Do not try to take a week or two after you receive an offer. You won't have that amount of time. They will rescind it, I promise. Or they'll keep on interviewing other people, and if they find somebody, then they'll rescind your offer. And if it's a contract position, you have 2 days maximum, typically. If you are happy with the offer, just accept it, especially at this stage in your career, right? Offers are somewhat hard to come by. And if you're happy with it, take it. But I'll just skip to the last point here, though. When you do get an offer and you say, I accept it, stick with your word. You will burn a bridge if you don't, right? If you back out for whatever reason, or if you're using an offer to leverage a better situation somewhere else, or you're juggling multiple things and you're trying to go back to the other place and say, hey, I just got an offer, and see if they give you more money because of it. But if you've already accepted that offer, don't do that. Just let everyone else know that you're out and that you're moving forward with a different position. Please do not ever use an offer to get a better position at your current company. You're letting them know that you've been cheating on them, and that relationship will never be the same afterwards. There are way too many correlations between job searching and dating, right? Or whatever the case may be. But you are letting them know that you've been unfaithful and that you're no longer fully invested in them. It will never be the same. Same thing goes for counter offers, by the way. If your current company gives you a counter offer, I encourage people to never take them, because that relationship will never be the same. And no matter what they tell you, things will not be as good as you want them to be there. There's a reason that you were searching, and stick with your gut as far as that goes. When people take counter offers, they always call me within 3 months, like clockwork. It might be a week later, it might be 2 months later, it might be 3 months later, but they always call me. I have never had somebody accept a counter offer and not call me within 3 months, ever. So just remember that for the future. When you're working, you have your dream software job, and you get a counter offer, just don't take it. Offers are just business. Please don't take them personally. If you get lowballed, smile, say thank you. I'm excited that I got an offer from you, and get back to them the next day after you've talked to some people and after you've taken a gut check for yourself and after you've been able to get in a better emotional state over it so that you can talk unemotionally about it, and just say, hey, look, I'm kind of hoping for something more here. Is that doable? And if they say no and you're not able to take the offer, just say thank you so much. Unfortunately, it's not going to work at this time. I've said this multiple times now, but speak to people that you trust before accepting an offer. Again, unless you're super excited about it, right? Then just take it. That's pretty much my talk. Questions?
No, that was some great guidance and great advice for the proper things to do and the proper etiquette for interviews and negotiating offers. I think that's always a tough thing, is negotiating the offers when you don't have experience. So that was really good advice with that. Now we do have some questions.
Ask away.
Yeah, one question I have is with setting up with a recruiter, what are the best steps to use if you're thinking about using a recruiter and you've decided on who you want to use, what are the best steps to get set up?
Oh, I mean, just, I would connect with them on LinkedIn and ask them, let them know that you're looking for a position, and ask them for their time. And, they should be honest with you about their ability to help you. And if they can't be, then move on. I have 51 competitors in Portland. Might be less now because we're in a bad market right now, right? And recruiting companies always seem to go away in a bad market, smaller ones, but there are some really good recruiting companies out there, and there are really good recruiters that will take the time to speak with you, and that will be honest with you, and that will work hard for you. And there are many that don't as well. But just reach out to them. They're a person.
Sounds good. And what are the best things, somebody who's a newbie who's just graduated a boot camp or maybe just graduated with a CS degree, what are the best they can do to get set up to work with a recruiter initially?
It's the same thing, right? So just reach out to somebody, say, hey, Isaac at Vanderhouen or Trent at Vanderhouen or whatever, hey, I just graduated from here. I don't have a ton of real world experience, but I do have some internships, or I do have these projects that I've completed. I'd love to, take 5 minutes of your time and introduce myself if you'd be open to that. They will say yes. So, treat that like an interview, because it kind of is. And be nice and be patient and ask, be prepared with some questions. And let them, be prepared to talk about what you're capable of right now and what your goals are and those kinds of things. And if you're a likable person and, you don't waste their time because you're prepared for that conversation, it'll go really well, and they'll likely take you on as a candidate.
Sounds good. And do you have like code challenges for somebody new to tech, like for certain stacks, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we do. So we have thousands of them. I'm happy to do it, but it costs us $20 a pop. So I want you to be serious before you ask me about it.
That's understandable. Very understandable. All right. So some of the questions we have. So what is the best recommended? And I'm sure with the ATS scanner, this will be part of the decision. But what is the best font to use with your resume?
So I was almost going to speak about that. It's just a myth. Don't worry about the ATS. The ATS doesn't matter, right? Unless it's like a picture of your resume that the ATS can't pull in, the ATS is going to be able to pull it in regardless. Doesn't matter. So as long as all of the correct information is on your resume, it's going to pull in.
All right, sounds good. And with a resume, do you recommend? It used to be, well, you hear it out there, like you should have a one-page resume. That was the going thing for a while. But I think for a professional resume, and especially with tech, that kind of thing, it should be more. But what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So there are many opinions on this, but a couple of pages is great. 3 pages probably max. Just remember that you only have about a minute of their time. So whatever is on your resume that's important, you want them to read.
All right, sounds good. And Amy wants to know if we'll have access to the slides.
Yeah, of course. And I sent them to Adrian too, so you can just take them.
Okay.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll make them available. We are recording this, so we'll be on our YouTube channel, and we'll make them available through the YouTube channel.
Perfect.
All right, good stuff. And Reed wants to know if we do not have real-world tech experience, obviously, or example of previous tech jobs, but we have graduated the Tech Academy. What is the best way to proceed with the job search, approaching being green into the industry?
Sure, it's a great question. So, one of the nice things about the Tech Academy and other, code schools as well, but is that all of you will have done a project that went into production before you graduate. That is experience that can and should go on your resume, right? So instead of maybe saying it experience as the subtitle on your resume, put projects, and then bullet points about what you did and a link to your project, as well as making sure that your GitHub is up to date and having a link for that on your resume, or whatever kind of code repo that you have your code on the internet.
Yeah, having a good GitHub portfolio, and we do have students create their own portfolio website.
Great.
So it does set them up well with for the initial job search with being new to the industry. So
internships, projects that you've done, right? That's all experience too. That's a good question, Reed. Thanks.
All right, good stuff. And Janet has a question here. Janet, I see you have your hand up, but I'm going to ask your question first here. So it says, age made a lot of difference in looking for does age make a lot of difference in looking for a tech job? And is tech marketing not good at the moment?
So the age question, as I'm getting older, I'm probably not the best person to ask this of anymore, just to be honest. But I haven't found it to be an issue in the past at all. It's more about personality and being likable than your age, right? It's having energy and showing interest and having good examples prepared and answering technical questions correctly. It's less about your age or anything else, really. I haven't found it to be an issue, and I've placed people that are much older than me. Yeah.
No, good advice. And that is a question. It is viewed as a younger industry, but
Sure.
having the experience and the wisdom, that really goes a long way too. Even if it is a previous industry, you can carry those skills that you learned in your previous career and carry 100%. Those into your tech career.
100%. That's absolutely true.
All right.
Yeah, and as far as contact information, you guys feel free to share my contact information with your students, or I can share it here if needed. But I, I do want to let you know that I'm not personally taking on candidates. I don't have the time right now. I do just involved in too many other things with Vanderhouen and with people that I've placed in the past. But there are a few recruiters at Vanderhouen who would be happy to help and that I would recommend. And that, I trained. They're good at what they do.
And I just added the link to the chat for Vanderhouen.
Perfect. I am more than happy to help anyone here, with resume reviews, interview prep, whatever the case may be. If you have questions about a company that you're interviewing for, chances are I know them. Chances are I probably know who you're interviewing with and can give you some advice if you would like. But I just can't take on full job searches right now for people.
Understandable. And I'm sure you got a lot you're managing at the moment. Now with tech marketing, how's the tech marketing job market?
Fine, right? So, I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about right before this started. If anyone was, some people were here for that. But talking about AI, I don't think that that's a field that will be heavily affected by AI because it's more about personal skills. I think that tech marketing can be a good field. It just depends on what job you mean in tech marketing, right? So I need some better examples as it's a broad field. There are some positions that are, not being hired a lot and others that are, but it's still a good field.
Yeah, and going along with that, knowing SEO is probably really good, something good to know.
Yeah,
getting into the marketing side.
Yeah, and people are still hiring SEO folks quite often. Janet has a question about database development. Yeah, it's still a great field to be in. Database development, SQL development, whatever the case may be. Just, that whole field has changed a lot, right? Especially with the cloud. So I would say that, if you wanted to get into SQL development, I'd really dig into like Azure SQL and, the whole Azure BI suite. All of it's cloud-based these days, and that's what people are looking for.
Yeah, everything is cloud-based with database, with hosting, with networking, and it just removes all the infrastructure for business. They can just pay for it and have someone else do it, and they don't have to pay for the space either. So
correct. Yeah, it saves a lot of money in space for sure.
No, it definitely
any
does.
Other questions? We still have time, so if anybody has any other questions, feel free to ask them.
Well, Janet has her hand raised. Janet, just put into the chat. Did you want to verbally ask a question, or were your questions answered? And while Janet is doing that, so with skills that candidates have, what are you most excited to see when they come to you?
I'm most excited about seeing things again that they've done, right? Things that they made. If they come to me and they say that they're interested in doing this but haven't done it, that doesn't excite me. But if they come to me and say, hey, I'm really interested in Python, and by the way, I've been doing a ton of Python development lately, and here it is on my GitHub, that excites me. But not super impressive if someone just comes to me and says that they want to do something but haven't done it, because it's very easy to go out there and write software these days. You don't have to have a job write software. You just have to be interested in doing it. So you never go to an employer and tell them that you're interested because you want to do something. Just already be doing it. Yeah.
All right, good stuff. And Kyle has a question. He says he's been in tech for a while. What are some good resources for pivoting, expanding my experience, and somewhat quickly?
Pluralsight is a good one, I think, right? So it's minimal cost, and those are people that are teaching on thousands of subjects. It's a good way to learn. But going back to what I just said before that, though, if you want to do something, I would just go out and find a project, write an open source project, and start doing it. Pick it up, and post it onto your repo.
Yeah, and a good place you can find a lot of good open source projects on GitHub itself if you search it out. So find one there and then fork it and make changes to it, and that's always a good thing for employers to see.
Yeah, and people, speaking of GitHub, right? They'll look at your how much you've contributed to GitHub as well. That's important, right? You don't want a GitHub link that hasn't been used in several years.
Yeah, no, good advice there. Really good to keep your key projects ongoing with GitHub.
Yeah.
So they can see you're currently working, and it shows a real interest in the industry.
Yeah, it costs nothing but time, right? And I know time's precious, but take the time.
Yeah.
It should be your hobby right now, as much as anything. I believe somebody asked about CRM. It's still a hot field, right? It just depends on what it is. So dynamic CRM is still pretty hot, and people hire for that regularly. If you mean like becoming a Salesforce developer or admin, yeah, that's still a big field too. Those are the main ones that will get you jobs if you dive into them.
Yeah, and as we were talking about earlier, learning the cloud services, Azure, AWS, those will really benefit any candidates as well. So
yes, they definitely will.
And it's fairly easy to learn the fundamentals and the basics, as Andrew said with Pluralsight or Udemy. There's good resources out there, and it's not. I mean, you can become an administrator and become somebody who's really skilled with it, but for finding work, just having the fundamentals will really help you out. All right, and so what is the interview process for tech roles now? How does that usually go?
Sure. So typically it'll start off with an overview type interview. So that'll be a first interview. Ask you some questions. They might probe to find out what you know about their company in that interview, right? They'll give you an overview of what they're looking for, and they'll ask for an overview of your background, right? It's 30 to 45 minutes. Then the after that is the technical interview, or maybe not super technical always, but you'll have some kind of technical interview second. And if they need a third, that's going to be like a personality check with a couple of other people in the company. But 1 to 3 interviews, typically 2. And whiteboarding is not like the norm anymore, thank God. But I would still expect to be drilled technically in an interview. You may not have to write algorithms anymore, although you could, it's possible. But it's going to be more like technical questions and tell me a time that you did this type stuff, right? It's not going to be, thank goodness, whiteboarding is a thing of the past, but it's still, they can ask whatever they want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do get students that do get code challenges, so they will send a candidate an email with the code challenge and the
Yeah.
criteria,
Yeah.
and
Code challenges are super common, right? So
yeah,
yeah, that's that's a good point. Just please, like I said, don't use Chat GPT to answer it.
yeah, and
Don't go there.
I think I thought that was pretty interesting. You brought up that using ChatGPT in the interview is not recommended.
No, dear God, no. I mean, people do that. I'm serious.
I
They'll be there typing and asking questions, right? And and then spitting out the answers that they get. It's just so obvious.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, not a good to maybe use it a little bit to prepare, but yeah, not
sure.
good for the interview itself.
It's a great tool, right?
Yeah,
It's an excellent tool. It's a great preparation tool. It's a great tool for a lot of things. It's just
yeah,
not not an interview tool when you're in an interview or for
I,
code challenges. Yeah.
I agree. All right, and Trevor has a question. It's for cybersecurity. We do have a cybersecurity boot camp,
Good.
and it says, I've been pretty active with TryHackMe and curriculum with tryhackme.com curriculum since graduating from the Tech Academy last summer. Is there anything worth mentioning on my resume with TryHackMe?
Sure. Right. So I wouldn't put that in your experience section per se, unless those are projects, that you've been working on, and then you can talk about it more in that section. But I would absolutely talk about that maybe towards the top of your resume in the About Me section. Continuous learner. I've been, using TryAcme since I graduated from my cybersecurity, you know, uh, school, and I've done this, this, and this. I've learned about SOC 2 compliance, and I've learned about these tools or whatever the case may be. Talk about it. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, you do anything you can showcase, you do want to do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Important.
So on the support side role, and I am a graduate of computer science. I am currently looking to switch to a developer. What's the best approach?
What's the best process for going from IT support to development?
Correct.
And you're currently in a support role, or you were?
Sounds like he is currently in the support role.
We'll start writing code at work. Automate things. Right. So if you're currently working in a support role, start writing automation at work.
Yeah,
That's a good way to start, right? So like, pick up Python and start writing some automation at work and do a few things. No one's going to mind, right? Like, as long as you're not, you know, putting anything to prod that's going to destroy the company.
yeah, and he said he recently graduated and says he's looking for a job. So I guess maybe he was doing a support role, but he's
So
currently graduated with a CS degree and he's looking for a job. And I think everything
yeah,
in the talk here should help you out with that.
yeah, for sure.
All right, and just a couple of LinkedIn tips. What are some of the best things you can do with your LinkedIn for finding a role in tech?
Yeah. I mean, your LinkedIn is kind of like, again, kind of like a resume, right? It's an online kind of resume, kind of overview of your background. It's a great way to have people get a hold of you. Um, a few things, don't worry about the possible stigma of having the green banner. Use it. It's fine. Like, as long as somebody's not a complete a-hole, they're not going to care if you have a green banner. So, use it. Let people know that you're looking. Um, like your resume, go into detail about what you've done. in, with projects, with, past experience. If it's not related to technology, take it off your LinkedIn and talk about what you've done at Tech Academy, right? I wouldn't list like 15 jobs that, are bartending jobs, for example, on your LinkedIn. It's not relevant. If you want to talk about how, you were a bartender that became a developer, that's a cool story. Mention that. But your LinkedIn is also a blunt tool to get somebody's attention. So treat it like that. Talk about things that are relevant to what you want to do.
Yeah, no, good points. And what do you think about paying for LinkedIn while you're doing your job search?
You don't need to.
All right. Right to the point. That's good. Okay, so, and I apologize. I believe the name is Vamshi. And they ask, some tech vendors are asking me to add skills, for example, more Angular. Can I do it?
You can if you've done it. You can't if you haven't.
Yeah.
Right. So don't, zero BS.
Yeah, and do highlight any skills that you do want to highlight on your resume and your LinkedIn. So make sure you do have those on there.
Yeah. If you have it, put it there. If you don't. You don't need to talk about, DOS and, things that you did when maybe you were a kid and just learning computers, right? If it's not still used and still relevant today, don't bring it up. Don't put it on your resume. If you have it and it's a current technology, talk about it. If you don't have it, do not put it on your resume. And any recruiter, like tech vendor, is recruiting company, whatever, shame on them for asking you to do something that you haven't done if that's what they're doing.
Okay, good stuff. And are there any tips that you have for the ATS scanner?
No, there's it's a myth. Trust me. Just have your contact information on there, have your experience on there. It'll pull in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
the ATSs are pretty sophisticated these days. They'll pull it all in.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that with technology advancing the way it is, I'm sure it's getting a lot easier to get through.
Yeah,
as long as you
it
have.
parses really well, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, when you finally do speak with somebody, though, offer to send them your actual resume.
Okay, good points. And any other questions for Andrew? You can put your questions in chat.
Yeah.
But we'll see if any last questions come in. But that's been a great talk, Andrew, and really good advice, really good guidance, and job recruiters seem to be our most popular talks at the moment, and I think it lets people know what they need to be doing properly for getting into the tech industry, and possibly using a recruiter.
Yeah.
It's and I think it kind of puts everyone at ease on what they need to do. So that's good. I will highly recommend Vanderhouen. Our students have been hired through Vanderhouen, and they have been really successful in Portland. Now, do you do outside of Portland, or is it just Portland?
Yeah, we recruit and place people nationwide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to
When
know.
I first started here, we were just local, but we've grown organically since then and have clients all over the country. Yeah.
No, good stuff. All right, and Adrian, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, this is going to be short. So again, thank you everyone for attending today's Tech Talk, and a big thank you to our speaker, Andrew, for sharing his knowledge and expertise with us today. Yeah, it's really helpful for our graduates and everyone in here in the talk. So we host Tech Talk every Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. In addition to these talks, we also offer other programs like our Tech Accelerator program, which an advanced program that offers dynamic and hands-on learning with 100 plus educational videos and live weekly sessions every Tuesday with Eric. So you can email us at here. I'm just going to post it in the chat. Okay. Yes, you can email us there for more information. And we're also excited to let you know that we have a lineup of Tech Talks scheduled all the way into February. So you can check out our Tech Talk lineup here. And yeah, so stay tuned on that for more updates. And again, thank you again for joining us today, and we hope to see you at our future events.
All right, y'all have a great day.
Thanks, Adrian, and thank you very much, Andrew. Have a great weekend, and we'll be happy to have you back soon.
All right, take care.
All right, bye, Andrew. All right, thanks everyone. Here is Andrew's link again in the chat for Vanderhalen and also the Tech Academy. For those who are not students, if you're thinking of attending, getting some tech training, some tech learning, we do have certifications in software development, cybersecurity, and artificial intelligence. So it's learncodinganywhere.com. Okay, everyone have a great weekend. Thanks for coming out, and we will have the talk next Friday, same time. We'll see you then. Bye all.